Yo, what is going on today, YouTube? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today, we're going to be focusing on that solo meta. I made that video last week about Erlang mid and about Athena mid and just like kind of Dardas and what he's been playing. In solo lane, the meta is kind of transformed even a lot more. It is nearly the entire solo lane meta. Every player, every available pick is going to be a mage if it's one of those top tier gods. I mean, there's a little bit of Alma, there is some Guardian, some Serb, but a lot of these top mages in the meta are being put into solo lane, and they're being picked very, very early, even over very strong gods like Baba. So before we talk about why they're being picked, I just want to take a look at their build, because the build is a very interesting part. Right now, currently, the build usually looks something along the lines of breastplate, Genji's here, and then the last item is kind of a fill item. But just in these 5 items, the power they get, the protections they get, all this stuff that they get from just this, and this is before you get any stacks on your breastplate, the survivability and the damage output is very wild. 300 power in solo lane. You're not shredding tanks, no, but you're going to be effectively poking the backliners, and you have a lot of damage potential onto those backliners. The survivability you get from breastplate, and also the survivability you get from Genji's for the cooldown, you're able to spam these abilities and you become this kind of poke mage. And with the Bloodsoaked Shroud, the Pythags, the Typhons, laning phase is very easy because you sustain up so much. And then late game, the amount of sustain you actually get from this item is insane because it's on any enemy. It is Gold Fury, Fire, Waves, the enemy Titan, enemy gods, anything. Anything you come across, you will be healing off of. And so it makes it so you're a sustained character that's almost like those warriors where Axe used to be the meta, or it's Bluestone, I guess, somewhat now, or Death Toll, or whatever the meta is. There's usually some semblance of sustain in that role. Axe, you have the poke potential. You can hit them and you get a burst heal. Bluestone, you get some HP 5, and then you also have Death Toll's ability to just walk to totem and heal off those. But now you kind of have that with these mages too with this current build. And why is Pythags really the item that's being gone for? It really comes down to Typhons, Bloodsoaked Shroud, and Pythags. The damage and the sustain you get from these items is better than any other item. I was curious why the Pythags also. I was thinking maybe E-Staff just as a one-off survivability item with that Vamp Shroud just makes a little bit more sense. But Pythags is a great survivability item, especially pairing it with Typhons and Bloodsoaked Shroud. This puts you in at 20% pen, so you have a little bit of frontline damage. Not a lot, but a little bit, so you can poke at least. You have really good sustain, and then 300 power in just 2 true damaging items, because Bloodsoaked is more of a sustain item, is incredible. The last item ends up being a fill item. We saw some binding, we saw some divine if divine was needed, but it really is just whatever you need. Build in that 6 slot. Sometimes you might have to actually delay like the Typhons or something. It's nearly guaranteed every game. It's Vamp Shroud, Pythags, Breastplate. Those are almost guaranteed your first 3. If you're playing against a Guardian, it'll be Genji's instead of the Breastplate, but usually it's against physicals. And then sometimes we saw Divine if you needed it earlier for the anti-heal, but you'd usually just go the other. So if you have Breastplate here, you go Genji's here. If you have Genji's here, you go Breastplate here. But now, why are mages being picked? Why are we seeing a ton of Raijin? Why are we seeing a ton of Opwash? I think a lot of it comes down to the warriors' strengths are finally been almost completely nullified. A lot of their items currently are not very good. I mean, I talked about this in my last video where I said Glad Shield was just not a good item. There's solo laners, Fine, okay, Nika, that agree it's just a very bad item right now. But what else is there to go? You go Breastplate with Bluestone, and you're not doing any semblance of damage, so you're no real threat to the enemy backline. These current mage builds have winning 1v1s, and then they also dive backlines better, and these warriors have just been kind of completely negated. And I think you could talk about Alma if you want. This is a one-off character. No other character in this class does what Alma does. She lanes safer than any other god in the game. She has an unreal late game. She helps with utility on objectives, movement speed, stuff like that. And her dive potential late game is insane. So we can pass Alma off to this side. She is a pass because she got big buffs and she is very strong. So if I say warriors, I'm talking about every warrior except Alma. Warriors are really, really strong, and you want to play warriors when they can actually threaten the enemy jungle, the enemy ADC, the enemy mid. Currently, they just don't have a build that really does that. A lot of their items have been nerfed. They no longer really have that. And they no longer even win that solo lane 1v1 because they just take so much damage and they aren't able to clear, or they just get outpoked. And even we see with Alma where she is a solid laning god. She's not great or anything, but she loses a lot of these laning phases to Raijin, Opwash, Hades, every god loses to, but a lot of these mages that are getting picked. I mean, even Serb, we saw Variety solo Nika on that matchup. Serb is just a better laning god than Alma. Warriors have just been almost completely phased out of the meta. They just don't have a viability in the meta other than Erlang in jungle or Alma in solo. And so now that's kind of why we see this shift in solo lane too. There's really not a ton of warriors in the games that are played. We see a good amount of mages. Sometimes we see mages mid. Sometimes we see mages in support with the Aphrodite. We see mages in solo lane. We see less assassins than we did only a couple weeks ago. Less Pele, less Set. And Set didn't even get nerfed, and we're seeing less of him. Curious if there's like a possibility of Set being played in solo lane now, because a solo lane Set will play pretty well into these mages. So curious if maybe that's where a shift literally happens. Takes Set out of the mid lane, put him in solo lane. And he's also got that extra safety that a lot of the other solo laners don't have, where you can just dash over the wall or dash 70 units away. But yeah, that's kind of why we're seeing those mages in solo. That's why they're running the build they are running. And why it looks so strong, because really it does look very hard to play against, and it looks very hard to lane against unless you are also playing one of those mages. But that's the meta in solo lane right now. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Do you guys like watching this solo lane meta? Are you bored of it? Do you want to go back to those warriors? I know a lot of people don't like seeing warriors dominate the game, but that is their job in the solo lane, so they have to be a little bit stronger. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.